So today we are going to still talk about authorization. And when I mean authorization, I mean role-based authorization. And I'm going to explain what's the difference between authentication and authorization. Okay. So let's see. Can anybody attempt? I think I mentioned what authentication actually meant. So can anybody actually like maybe try to talk about what authentication means, right? Anybody?
Now, just ensuring that people are who they claim they are. A way of
Yeah,
ensuring that people are who they claim they
yes. So authentication, when you're uh when you create an authentication route, right? The authentication route is used to to um give people the opportunity to actually claim to prove that they are who they are, right? So um for you to prove who you are, right, you would need maybe a username and a password, or you need a credential to show, right? Okay. And then sometimes the credential might not come from you directly, it might come from a um a body that knows you. For example, Google knows you, right? So you can log in with Google because Google can then vouch for you, right? The same thing with Facebook. Facebook can you do log in with Facebook, right? But this one we are trying to do now is just login in with username and password. Register authentication with just your username and password. Okay. So this is what would still what we are going to add apart from using the authentication middleware. We've done hashing password. We'll do the login route. Then I would also show you how to do role-based authorization, right? With role-based authorization middleware. I'll show you guys how to actually do that. So authentication is proving to a body, right? Or a service that you are who you claim you are. If you say you are Victor, okay, tell me the password that's right, that is associated with the accounts for Victor. If the password is correct, then I can believe that you are who you claim you are. If the password is not correct, I don't then you're not who you're trying to claim to be. If the username or the email doesn't exist, then we don't know you at all. Okay. Then I remember talking about hashing, and I think I explained the difference between hashing and encryption. Right? I said when you hash something, you can't unhash it. If you can unhash something that you hash, then there is a problem. It actually means that uh that particular hash algorithm is not strong, right? And another unique thing about hashing a value is that if you hash something twice, let's say I hash my password like twice, it should give me two distinct outputs. It shouldn't give me the same output, right? It should give me two distinct outputs. If I hash it three times, it should give me three distinct outputs instead of the same output when I hash it over. That person that wants to get that service has a particular credential, right? So this is how the whole login, the whole authentication stuff works. You log in if if you can prove who you are to the back end, right? The back end or the API can then give you something and tell you anytime you want to make requests to a route that is protected, then you must always pass this credential to that route, the authorization credential, right? You'll always have to pass it. Then it's from that authorization credential that you will know who you are. So instead of for each route that you want to send, for each protected route that you want to get maybe details from, you now have to send your username and password and each time. So instead of that, the backend can give you a token. That's how like front end like APIs actually interact. If you try to consume an API, right, a secured API, most times you'll be given an API key and it will tell you each time you're making a request to our API, always pass this key, right? So that key can be used to identify who you are, right? Then we have rule-based authorization. Now, rule-based authorization is authorizing people based on the kind of role they are assigned to. For example, you can have a user that is just a normal user, right? Then you can have an admin. Okay, let's take for example, let's take CodeCamp for example, right? There are some people that are trainee, right? There are some people that are the trainers. Then they have people that are admins, right? Those are different roles, right? And then based on your role, there are things you can actually do. There are things that you are not allowed to do based on your role, right? So there is also permission-based access. Permission-based access is like saying uh giving someone the privilege to take certain actions. For example, uh I could give you the permission, right? Maybe to be able to create users, but you cannot delete users. I can give you the permission to create and delete users, uh but then maybe there's something, maybe you can't edit users, for example, right? So there are those permissions, there are permissions to create something, a resource, right? On the back end, you might need a permission to read what is being created. You might need a permission. For example, right? As trainees, you can't add people to different channels, or you can't add people to CodeCamp, right? Just like that, right? So but you can view people that are on CodeCamp, right? So that's like kind of permission based, right? But then um you can also use both at the same time. You can have role based and permission based authorization on the same on your same API or backend, and then use both to do whatever I want to do, right? So but we should let's go with role based because that's what I think is simpler to actually understand. Okay, and what do you use to make role-based access? You use middlewares. So middlewares are like gateman. Before you reach your destination, you have to pass through them, right? You have to pass through them. If you don't pass through them, you won't get to your final like destination. That's it. Okay, so with what I've explained so far, does anybody have any question? Any question so far?
Yes, I have a question
Okay. Ask your
concerning concerning this authentication.
question.
Ahem. Like I read something like that when like what from what you said that if we are trying to authenticate, we are going to create a salt in addition with a random hash, right?
Um, with a
Like
random
it
hash.
it will combine the let me say the value that the user provides with
Result.
with yeah with a hash. Now my question is if we are to retrieve or authenticate and you said that we are not going to get the same value as like if you want to rehash,
Yeah. Okay, I
like in
understand what
that
you mean.
like in that
When
in
you are
that
trying to compare password, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So let me share my VS Code. We are starting now, no, right? So I'll show you how to compare passwords. So remember that the last time we did our stuff, we tried to registered, but then after registering, when we checked the database, right, we saw a different password. We saw the hashed version of the password that we put in, right? So let's see how we can actually compare that password, right? So let me reshare my screen. Let me take it to KodeCammp. Yeah. Okay. So we are here. Confirm that you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So this is it. Now we did this the last time we were able to register. Now let's create the login, right? For people that are just joining, right? I explained what authentication is, what authorization is, how they differ, and right how they are being used, and everything about it basically, right? So let's see how we can create a login route. So if you want to create a login route, this is what you do. I hope you guys can see hear me clearly. Oh. You type router. I hope you guys can hear me. Oh. Confirm. Still clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay, fine, nice. Okay, because I left the microphone actually. So I thought since it's not close to my mouth, you guys won't hear me clearly. Okay, so this is how you do it. And my screen is tiny. Let me make this bigger for you guys. Okay, now we have the requests and we have response, and we can then log in here, right? Now, how do we log in? Remember that the user is sending back his I want to use his email and his password, right? So this is what I'll do. I could then come here and say the user detail. User detail should be equals to I'll say await user collection dot find one, right? Now I think I need to also explain the difference between find there's find by ID, there's find one. That's for the database query. There's find one. Uh, there's find one and update. There's find by ID and update, right? There's update many. Now, find is going to return an array of whatever you're looking for, right? For example, if I'm looking for all the users their that their email is victor@gmail.com, this is going to return an array. Even if there's only one user that has that email, it's going to return an array. Find by ID is going to find by ID as the name implies. So find is going to accept an object, which is maybe something like this. If I'm going to use find or even find one, right? Find or find one, I'll do something like this. If I'm searching for an email, I'll, I'll then say where email should be, maybe what the user passed in, or maybe you just hard code it victor at gmail.com, right? Simple. But then if you're using find by ID, right? you don't need to pass an object here. Instead, you just pass the ID, right? The ID can come as a parameter. So you can say, or it can come as a body, anyhow you want to put it. So you say request dot body dot ID. Just pass the ID directly. You don't need to say ID is equals to request or passing an object, right? I hope you guys get what I mean. Who doesn't understand what I just explained? Everybody's following, right? Okay,
Please,
so
can I ask? So I want to ask a question, please.
okay, ask.
This thing we are writing right now is when a user tries to log in. These are the prompts that will come out. The methods is either through find or find by ID or find one.
No, I'm
Because
saying that I'm just see if I put if I just write dots, you see there are a lot. There's counts documents, there's create collection, create index, delete many, delete one. There are like very plenty of them, but the ones that are like, should I say, are more popularly used, right? This find by ID
I,
and delete.
I understand, but what I'm asking is this: this what we are doing is authentication right now, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
This authentication is it will prompt the user to, or let me, I don't know, does it prompt what the user has used in accessing the logging in before?
Yeah, so this is it, right? Yeah, this is going to actually go and look for that user, right? But then
Mhm.
after looking for the user, I've not yet decided on what to do, whether to return the value for that user or anything. So, but
Oh yeah,
let's just, hmm?
okay.
Yeah. So I want to find the user with the email and the password that is going to be passed to the the login route. Okay, so I'll say find one because it's email I'm looking for. And then say find one where the email is request.body.email.
Okay, this determines how the user have access, isn't it?
Yes, how the user is going to log in.
Okay, that is what I want to know.
Yeah, yeah. So remember we did register already. Remember this register now. So now what I'm doing is the login part. Okay, so the first thing you can do is you first try to look for that user, and then you can say if the user doesn't exist, right? If that user doesn't exist, so if colon that's exclamation mark and user details, then you can respond you can respond with a message like maybe user not found, right? Then you can say here, remember that not found should come with a matching parameter. So you can say dot status, because if you don't put this status, remember that it's just going to send back uh 200, and 200 means okay. So instead of that, we'll change this to 404. So and then user not found, right? Now, how do we compare the password? Because this is just going to look for the user,
Please,
right?
Victor, don't be angry. What is the meaning of this 404?
404 means found on means not found actually. Okay.
It's just a terminology that they normally use, or is it you that initiates it, or whatever?
It's not me that initiates it actually.
I
So
know,
let me
I always see it. Is it? I want to know why it's always 404 is always in use.
okay. Uh I understand your question. So now there's what is called status code, right?
Mm,
Okay. Let me share my screen again for you guys to see. Okay, so if you just do a quick search on HTTP response status code,
this is. Mhm.
you'll see a lot of different style like ranges for status code, right? So now let's learn together. Any status code that is between 100 to 199 is an informational response, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that maybe tells you, okay, uh, for example, 100 means continue, and you can see the description for it. This interim response indicate that the client should continue the request or ignore the response if the request already finished, right? 101 means switching protocol, right? So what they are telling you here is if you're designing now, when you're designing an API, right? There are best practices. There are what is called best practices, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now those best practices are the um the most used, or should we say the best way you can actually design what you're trying to design or do what you're trying to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. So now first design practice is that your status code, right, must be descriptive. So
Okay.
if someone sees a status code of um for example, if I leave that route right like that and I just wrote not found and send back to the user is going to see send back to the service that actually makes the request. That service will see 200 as a response status code, but then it's seeing not found. You understand?
Okay.
So now look, we have informational response, we have successful response. So
Yeah.
successful response is between 200 to 299. We have
Mm-hmm.
redirection, we have client error, and we have server error, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if we come here, successful responses, right? So 200 means okay, like successful, right? And then they say if you're using it on uh, a get route, it means that the resource has been fetched and transmitted in the message body. If you use it on the head protocol, it means the headers are included in the response without any message body. Then, if you use it on post or puts, it means that the resource describing the result action is transmitted in the message body. Like just know that 200 just means okay, like it's successful. So if you send a 200 status code back to your a service that actually requested something from your API, you're trying to tell them that what they did was successful. But in this case that we are trying to log in a user and then the user is not found, why would you send the 200 back? That's you're trying to say it's successful that we did not find the user. It doesn't actually make sense, right? 201
Yes.
here, 201 means created, right? So the request succeeded and a new resource was created as a result. If you remember, if you check when we're doing the register, you see the place that I changed the status code from to be 201 because normally it would have sent back 200. So I changed it to 201, right? You see, 202 means accepted. It means your request has been received, but it is not yet acted upon, right? They are different. There are a lot of them. 203,
I
204.
understand.
Uh-huh. Now, if you move to 300, 300 means anytime if you want to tell the service that's using your API that there's a redirect, right? Uh-huh. You can use 300, multiple choices. 301 means something was moved permanently to maybe another address, right? You can use this to send an information to the from a front end or a mobile app that they should redirect their user to maybe new URL. If we come to 404, you see 404 means client error. Remember that there's client
Mm-hmm.
server error.
Mm-hmm.
400 means bad request. You can use bad request when probably someone tries to, maybe someone sends an incomplete information, right? Or a deceptive request, a request that is not maybe that is deceptive or is not valid by your API. you can then send a 400 as a response back that, okay,
Mm,
you send the correct thing, right?
okay.
We'll use 401 when we try.
Unauthorized.
This 401 is used when someone is trying to access a protected route, and then that the person did not provide the credentials that were necessary to access that route. So they can send 401. So if when once they see 401 from their end, from the maybe the website or the mobile app, they will know that okay, the server is trying to tell us that we are unauthorized or we are unauthenticated, right? 402 means payments required, 403 means forbidden, 404 not found,
Mm,
right? There are a lot
yeah.
of them.
Okay. So it is now left for you to use the right one while
Ex
writing your code.
exactly.
Okay.
So if the server, maybe something happened that the server crashed, or maybe the your your API got the request correct, but maybe trying to process that request, there was maybe a server error, right? You can send back a 500 to tell the clients that this maybe the error that is coming now is not from them, but
Mm,
it's from the server itself. 501, you can use it if maybe there's no route that is supposed to that is designated to handle a particular request or something. You can then use 501, not implemented, right? So it means the method request is not supported by the server or cannot be handled, right? You can also use 404 because that means that that route wasn't found too, right? There are a lot. If there is a particular route that exists, but then you don't want people to actually access that route, you can return a 503. So that route is there, but the service is not available actually, right? This is something you should really understand. You can come here and like study these status codes, right? See how they are. You can study each of them and know what they actually mean and how you can use them. Okay, so uh, anybody has any question, any other question? Okay, so in the absence of any other question, I think we'll just go back to uh, we'll go back to our VS Code. Okay, so we are back here. So we send back a 404, which means um the the user is not found. But then remember, I put a return here. So if it's true that the user is not found, after sending this, it won't allow the code to continue further. But then if the user is found, then this is where we can compare the password. So we can do something, we can write this, we can say um uh does password match does password match. Now, this is how you compare password. You still use bcrypt. Remember that it's bcrypt you use to hash the password, right? So the bcrypt gives us a method called compare sync. So you say bcrypt dot compare sync, right? Now, the same way in when I was talking about file system that you have read file sync and you have read file. And if you're using read file, you need to pass a callback. But if you're using read file sync, you don't need to pass a callback. It's exactly the same thing here. There's hash sync, right? If I use hash here, then I'll pass in a callback after the sort to get the hash password. But I'm using hash sync, right? Because I want it to be synchronous. The same thing here, compare sync, right? Then in compare sync, what do I have to pass in here? Now, compare sync accepts two arguments. It accepts the password in strings, right? Which you want to compare, which is the one the user is going to send, and the one that was fetched by the database. right? So now what is going to happen is if the two passwords match, then this does password match is going to result to true. But if the two passwords don't match, then this password match will result to a false. Do you guys understand? Hello, do you guys understand?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now the first thing I need to pass here is the password that comes from the user, right? So I could say request.body.password. Now, comma, the next one I'm supposed to enter now is the password that comes from me fetching the user's detail, right? So that would be user detail dot password. So we are comparing the password that the user sent from his service to the API with the one that was fetched from the back end, right? This is going to be true if those two passwords match, but this is going to result to a false if the two passwords don't match. So I could do something like this. I could say uh if does password match equals to false, right? So if it is true that password don't match, that's the password match is false, right? That's this result is false. This is the same thing as me doing this. If then I put an exclamation mark. Remember that if this is false now, this exclamation mark will negate it and it will become true. If this is true, which means the password match, this exclamation mark will negate the value and it will become false, right? Anybody uh confused? So I could then return a response with a status of, I could use 400, then I could say dot send, then I'll say now, Sha, if I'm the one designing an API, I won't say password don't match. It's not good to actually tell them that the password don't match. Instead, you just say invalid credential. Some websites will even tell you invalid credential, whether the user was not found or your password did not match. It's a way of also kind of securing your front end too, because someone can come and try random emails with password, and if it's showing not found, not found, not found, and then they try an email and that email actually shows invalid credential, they will understand that, oh, this user is found, but the password is wrong, right? So they can now stay on that email and keep trying different password, or they try a dictionary attack, right? So what is a dictionary attack? That's another question. Now, some hackers, right? What they do is they have a dictionary of, or let's say a file that contains a lot of like popularly used passwords by people, right? So what they can do is they can write a script to send a request with a particular email, but then the password will be changing each time that it sends a request to your API. And then when your API responds with a status code of like 200, then it is going to output the password that it tried to use to log in, right? That's a dictionary attack. So most hackers don't actually know your password, but if they try, that's why most websites will tell you you can only maybe if you try to log in on an account, like let's say 5 times or 3 times, they will then lock that account and stop people from trying to log in, even if you try to use the correct password. Okay, I hope you guys are following. So that's one thing. So to prevent a dictionary attack, there are some steps you can actually take. right? But that's, you can read about dictionary attack on your own later on. That's why they say your password, which most times should be at least 8 characters long, then it should contain symbols, and your password should not be something that, a word that can be found in the dictionary, right? Your password should not be something like welcome or thank you, right? Or any of those words that can be easily, that is on the dictionary, right? It should be something, it should be a word that can't be found on the dictionary. And some people even go as far as uh they have maybe a word like welcome appear twice, but the second variation of the welcome appears in the reverse form. So if you like spelling stuff, doing reverse, like spelling words in reverse, right? And then use that as your password. Your password can still be like, your account can still be broken into. Okay. So that's what I could say about, what I can say about dictionary attack, right? But then at this point, I don't want to log in, like give out the token first, right? But I just want to return the user. So if the user detail, if we found the email and the password is correct, then I just want to return the user for now. This is what I'll do. I'll say if passwords, that's if passwords don't match, return invalid credentials. Else, if the passwords match, we'll just rest.send, and then I'll just send that user detail, right? I'll send user detail. Let me come here and just run npm start, and yep, connected successfully, right? Then let's come here and see. Um, this was the credential I used before, right? So let me try to log in now. Run a post. I'll just copy this URL, and I'll put in a username that doesn't exist. So I'll say /login, right? Then here the content type is going to be application/JSON. Then in here I could say the full name, no, not full name, right? The email is going to be hookup junior. No, let me use something that doesn't really exist. Freke@gmail.com, and let me use a password of Freke, right? Something that doesn't exist. Then I should send that request. You see, I have a response of user not found, right? And now let me use the correct Gmail. So if I use hookup Gmail, okay, Gmail, hookup Gmail at gmail.com, and I send that request. You see, now the the email is correct, right? But then the password is wrong, so it's showing invalid credential, right? But then if I put in the valid credential, which is Victor1234, and I click on send request, okay, you see, now it sends back every detail of that particular user, okay? But this is not actually how login works, right? Login works by you sending back a there are different schemes, right, to login. But then I want to use the bearer type of login, what is called the bearer authentication, right? Now let's see, how does bearer authentication work, right? Or how do we even start using it? Now, there is, when you log in, what is supposed to be sent back is a token, right? A token, and that token is called a JSON web token. So let me show you guys. I'll show my browser and then I'll share my browser and then I'm going to explain something to you how JWT works. Okay, so let me share my screen. Let me share my browser. Now, if you go to jwt.io, right, you'll be presented with this very beautiful website, right? Then about JWT, CJWT library, and the rest. Now, what is the full meaning of this JWT? JWT stands for JSON Web Token, right? Now, what happens when you log in is that there have to be a token sent back as a response to uh, to whichever service or user actually requested for that token, right? Now, embedded in that token would be the algorithm and the type of token. Then this payload here has to do with the details of that user that you want to embed inside that token. Then this this other part here has to do with the signature for that token. There are different this signature is automatically generated, right? It's not it's not something that you really need to like generate. But then your token will your signature, right, will contain a secret, and that secret is you that is actually going to write it. Okay. Okay. Ladder, you say you're getting an a 404 and an HTML response. Yeah, if you're getting a 404 and an HTML response, then that comes from uh what you actually wrote on your entry point, right? It will definitely come from what you wrote on your entry point, or if you didn't write any error handler on your entry point, then that is like coming back by default from Express. Since Express doesn't see any way to actually uh, take care of that uh, error, it will just generate something by default for you. Okay. Thank you for that question. So, but Ladell, what were you trying to do that it generated a 404?
Trying to log in.
You're trying to log in with my credentials.
My own.
Okay. Then probably maybe the credential you passed is not the credential that maybe it's not the correct credential.
I'm looking at it. It's 50.
Okay. Then you check what you actually wrote on your code. Maybe there's something you omitted. Maybe those exclamation marks, maybe you omitted one of them. Now, look, let me explain this again. For example, right? Let me say I want to, I look as I'm typing, it's changing, right? See, let me put my payload there in Victor, and let me put maybe I could put a row here. I could say my row should be user. You see, as I'm typing it, it's encrypting it real time, right? Now, anywhere, anywhere I go, right? If I have the correct secret to to the JWT, right? I could use that secret to decrypt this JWT. This JWT is a token that represents all these things you're seeing here. But for you to change this token, for you to create this token, for you to change this token from this form back to this form, right? Back to it showing you all this. You will need a secret. This secret here is what can be, is like a key, right? Remember that when you're encrypting something, hello, I hope you guys are following me. When you're encrypting something, right, you need a key. That key is used to encrypt and decrypt that value, right? So when you're encrypting, you're changing from plain text to ciphertext, right? When you're decrypting, you're changing from ciphertext to plain text. But to do that, you need the appropriate key to use to encrypt and to decrypt, right? Now, that's the same thing here. The key that you're going to type in here, if I say the key should be VICTOR, right? As I'm typing it, you see that the sign verify signature is changing as I'm typing it. You see, if I copy this and take it somewhere else and I try to decrypt what this is, right? If I use the key of Victor to decrypt this information, this JWT, this JWT will be will be converted back to this information here, right? What you're seeing here, then I can then use this information now to trace the user and do whatever I want to do. So now all this information here now is being like, should I say, encrypted, as it's encrypted as a token, right, in here. And then this is what the user is going to. So what you do, when you go to log into a website, what happens is you give your username, your password, it verifies your username or your email, for example. It verifies your email, it verifies your password. Then from your details, right, from the details it fetched from the database, I can use that details to form a token. Then I can then send this token back to the user and tell him, in case you want to send a request to another route that is protected, that you have to be logged in before you can access that route, just send this token again. Then with this token now, the backend can then convert that token back to this payload, and then it can use that token to know who you are instead of trying to send username and password again. Now, when you, okay, Timothy Alabi is asking the difference between hashing and unhashing, then encryption and decryption. Well, on hashing, if you can hash and unhash, or unhash and hash and unhash a certain value, then it means that the algorithm used for hashing, right, is not strong. Now, the purpose of hashing, a value is so that you will not have access to the original value again, and you will use that hash value as a representation of the original value. But then it's not up to you to know what that hash is anymore. Now, look at it. When you log in on any app, it is unethical for the company of that particular app to have access to know your real password. Is a serious security issue if a company, right, take for example your bank app, your any app that you have on your device, all passwords are hashed, and when it's hashed, the company itself shouldn't know the original value of that hash, like the original, what you hashed, right? It's only the system or the back end that should understand what the hash is and what the true value of that hash is. So if you can unhash something that has already been hashed, it just means that that algorithm for hashing wasn't strong at all, right? So the quality of a good hashing algorithm is that it should be difficult or impossible to actually unhash a value that has been hashed. But you can compare an unhashed and hashed value to see if they are actually the same. And if they are the same, it should tell you they are the same. If they are not the same, it should tell you they are not the same. But it should not be possible for you to convert the result of the hash to the original value. But when you're encrypting, right, you can encrypt, you can decrypt. Encrypting is just scrambling of information using mathematics. But then when you encrypt something, it should be possible to decrypt it if you have the key to that particular encryption, right? Or how do I put it? To that particular um I don't know how to actually put it now, but you should always have the key. The key will help you encrypt, and the key will help you decrypt. That's it will help you encrypt. That's change from plain text what you're trying to encrypt from plain text to ciphertext, and it should help you also decrypt. That's changing from ciphertext back to plain text. So that's the main difference between hashing and encryption. Okay. So do you have any other question? Any other question? Have I answered you, Timothy? Mr. Timothy?
Yes, yes, I get that now.
All right. So now let me explain this again. This is what happens, right? So you send your username and password to the back end. The back end picks the username and password. It checks if both are valid. It then maybe it fetch your detail, and then it can then pass your detail to a JWT algorithm. The JWT algorithm will now convert your details to something like this. Then this is what you're going to send to your user in return. You tell him, oh yeah, store this thing or keep this thing safe. Anytime that you want to access a route that is protected, right? What is a protected route? A protected route is a route that can only be accessed if you're logged in or if you have a token that can be verified, right? So now there are two things. Hash there's the signing of this token, which is one. The second thing you do is you can verify this token, right? And some algorithms allow you to destroy this token. Now, come, let's look. How do we do this in JavaScript? Now, let me ask, do you guys understand the whole concept of what I explained here? Is there anybody that doesn't understand the concept, what I just explained here? So now, most times you might not even really need to worry about the header of the algorithm, like the what has to do with the header, what like the type of algorithm or the type of token you want to generate. This one can automatically be done by the uh, library for the JWT. What you should be really, really concerned with is this part. What payload are you passing to the to JWT for it to encrypt, right? Or for it to use to create a token. That's what you should really be concerned with. And also, what is the secret that you're going to give out, right? It's a secret, so it's not supposed to be known by anybody. It's just supposed to be known by you alone, right? So let's see. Let's see. Okay. Um. So let's continue. Now let's come to these libraries. If it comes to libraries, you see that there are a lot of libraries, a whole lot, a whole lot of them. This one is for .NET. There is the one for IC, ADA, Bon. By the way, Bon is new, right? You can use it. I heard it's faster than NPM. I mean, it's faster than NPM. I think it's also a package manager too, right? Then the CCC. Before we get to JavaScript, I think JavaScript is down, down, down. Is you have JWT for Go, right? So you see that there are a lot of these are now what these are libraries you can add to your API to be able to like create tokens that your users can use or your users can keep and always send back to the back end or to any protected route, for example. So, and if you look, it tells you the kind of algorithms that is available. For example, if I'm using Go now and I'm downloading this particular version of the Go JWT uh, library, then it means I have access to HS256, HS384 down to EDSA. And in this one is not available for the meantime, right? There are a lot of things. Now, you can read about these algorithms. These are real life algorithms. If you search for HS256 algorithm, you should see a story behind this algorithm, what it is, how it works, and everything. If you uh, if you search it, you should see it, right? You can read about the story of like how it works, how you can actually use it, right? And this is also something that you should also not uh, tell people about, like the algorithm you use for your JWT, because someone can then go, okay, you're using HS256. Although even if the person knows about the algorithm, it will still be difficult to break the algorithm. But maybe someone can actually take out his time to look for a way to break the algorithm. Although it's difficult, very difficult to break, extremely difficult, but it's still doable, right? So if we come down to JavaScript, JavaScript, you see, um, you see we have JOSE, JOSE, which is this one. We have the minified version. I think this one is used for pure JavaScript, not Node.js, right? So this is the one for Node.js. This is the one we are concerned with. You see that Node.js has three different versions, right? And the three different versions have things that you don't have access to. Like for example, this one, for this particular one, you can't sign an algorithm. Sorry, you can't sign a token, but you can verify. You can also do, you can't also use these algorithms. These are the only algorithms that you have access to. See, you can verify, and this other stuff mean um has they have their own meaning. Like EXP has to do with the expiry date of a particular um token, right? You can make your token not to expire at all or to expire after some few minutes, right? IAT is the time that a token was created, right? You can read more about JWT. You can come to this website and read a lot about it, right? So mainly the one I like using, right, is this one, JSON Web Token, npm install JSON Web Token, right? This is the one I like using. You can use JOS. JOS too is fine. JOS has all its what? It has all its algorithms and everything ticked. But this one, we can't use this algorithm. You can't use the DSA algorithm and the rest. But then, enough of the talk. Let's actually use one of these. So I'll install JSON Web Token. Let's go back to VS Code. and install JSON with token. So this is how you do it. Hello, hope you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, so for us to install that, this is what we'll do. Just come and install JSON with token. So after installing JSON with token, we can come here and look. Instead of just sending back the user's detail, remember that this user detail, let me just send that request again. Let's see. What does it contain? Right? The user detail contains the ID, the full name, email, password, like basically everything, right? But then I might just want to put the user ID and the user's email into the JWT that I want to send to the front end, right? So this is how I'll do it. Let's come back to this auth.js. Let me do it on this side, right? Let me wrap everything so that you can see it here. So there's no overflow now, right? Now, look, at this point, for me to use JWT, right, I'll just come to the route I want to, or the file I want to use it and import it, right? So I could say const JWT should be equals to require, then in here I'll say JSON with token. So with that, I've imported the JSON web token. Then I'll come to login, right? And then in login, I'll say const, because now I'll say const token should be equal to JWT dot. Now, look at something. We have sign, I'm sorry, we have decode, we have sign, we have verify. Now, what does the what let me start with sign. What does signing do? Signing is used to create a JWT, right? So when you sign, you're actually going to pass the string, that's the string or the objects that I want to embed inside that token that I want to create. And then you pass a secret. A secret is what is used as a key to like sign and verify. So in cryptography, right, you have encrypt and you have decrypt, right? But with JSON Web Token, you have sign and verify, right? So signing is used to create, right? Then verify can be used to take, like, convert the JSON back to normal, like back to something that you can read and use, right? But then I haven't used decode before, right? But they said decode returns the decoded payload without verifying if the signature is valid, right? Okay, so verify is going to verify if the signature is valid and then send you back the value of that, the payload that was actually encrypted or encoded in that token. Okay. Do you guys understand? Hello.
Yes, to an extent.
To an extent.
Yes.
Okay.
But let's continue, Sha. Let's continue.
Okay. All right, let's continue. To get more interesting. Now, what I need to do is I need to sign at this point, right? So I want to sign. Now, what do I want to sign? I want to sign. I want to sign the user's ID and the user's email into the JWT. So I can do something like this. I want to sign the. I'll say email should be the remember that user detail is what returns that user detail. So I can say user detail dot email, comma. Then I could say user ID. The user ID should be user detail dot underscore ID. So with this, right? With this JSON dot sign and with this payload and with the secret that I'm going to pass in here. So I can create a secret up here, but when you're doing yours, make sure you create the secret inside your .env, right? So the secrets could be, I could just say const secrets should be equals to, no, your secret should not be something that is easily readable, right? Make it something that might not really make sense, so that even if someone sees your secret, the person cannot remember it. So I'll just type something like random, right, as my secret. Then what I'm going to do here is come down here and I'll say I'll pass the secret here. So now this is the payload. Remember when we on the website you saw that the payload was that name and one object that we try to encrypt, right? Okay, so this is going to represent that now, what we are trying to encrypt, the payload we are trying to add to the JWT. This secret, remember that place that we saw the sign to sign, right? So this secret is going to be used there, right? Let me return the token. So I could say, I could return here, I could say status, or not status, I'll say message, sign in, sign in successful. Then I could come under here and just say token. Of course, you know that token here is the same thing as saying token should be token. But since the name and the variable name that I want to use as the value they are the same, I could just say token. Okay. Okay, someone asked, the secret is to be provided by the developer or user. Well, the secret should not be provided by the user, right? The secret shouldn't be provided. Well, it depends, but if the secret is provided by the user, then I'm thinking about it. So how will the user actually provide the secret? Is there a place he's going to, after typing his username and his password or his email and his password, he will now pass a secret that should be used to sign his JWT, right? No. So the secret is not going to be passed by the user, it's going to be passed by the developer. So the person building the API is the person that knows the secret, right? But then remember that this is a development environment. So someone can be like, Omo, when you're developing my API, right? Use any secrets, use any secret. But when they want to deploy it to the production environment, right? Then the owner of the API or service can decide that okay, he's the one to set up the production. So you as a developer, just give him your code. He's going to deploy it and set the secret key and every other thing, the database and every other thing. But while you're developing, you can do whatever you want to do. Okay. So this mainly the token is always set by the uh the developer. Okay. Mr. Timothy, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, yes.
Yes. All right. Now, I hope other people are following. It's not only Mr. Timothy that is following and be asking questions. You guys should also ask questions when you're confused. So if we have that and I send a request now, right? I come here, test.rest, and I sent a request to login with the right credential. Do you guys see the same thing we saw on that website? Now, look at these points. This place here has to do with the encryption algorithm and the encryption type, right? Whatever is in here has to do with that. Now, remember that each part of this token is separated by a dot. Now, where is the second dot is where I'm trying. Okay, the second dot, which is here, right? From here to here has to do with the payload that is embedded into this JWT. Remember that the payload was the email and the ID of that particular user, right? Then this place here has to do with the secret that the person, the secret and some other details the uh, that the developer actually sets. Okay, so those are the three different aspects of or the three different parts of your JWT. Now note if the payload, let's come back here. If the payload that you're passing to your token is very large, like you have email, username, role, and every other thing, right? The larger the payload, the more this particular part of this JWT will be plenty, right? If I passed in the whole user into as the payload, this would be a lot bigger. If I did something like this, instead of me passing the email, I just said, I want to encrypt all the user detail, everything about the user. And I come back here and make that request. What happened? Okay, so it's saying that he expected a plain object, right? Because what this is sending back is actually just BSON, binary of object notation, right? If I did this, let me see. I could write JSON dot pass JSON dot stringify, and then I can put in that user detail there. Right, let's see. Then coming back here to test, if I send that request, can you guys see that? Because I added more details, right? So now it has the user ID, it has the username, the user's full name, the user's email, the user's created at, updated at, password, everything. See that from here to here now is the token. is what is encrypted. You see that is plenty, is not as short as the other one. Okay. Hello, are you guys following? Hello, are you guys still here?
Yes, 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 yes. We are
So
here.
who's not understanding it? Everybody understands, right? Okay, oh, since nobody's talking, so let me continue. Now, saying I have that token. Now, this is the token I can use for my um protected route. So now let me create a protected route, right? Let me just close that out. Let me create a protected route, right? Now, I would want it that before you can actually uh, maybe get a tax or post a tax or get any tax by, remember that we did all these stuffs about tax, right? You can delete a tax, you can patch a tax, you can get a tax by ID and all those stuff. You can add a tax using post. You guys remember? Now, I can make it possible that for you to do this, you have to be logging. You have to, before you can create a tax, right? You must have to be logging. So how do I do that, right? How do I do that? Let's see how to do it. This is how I can do it. First, I'll need to write a middleware. Remember, the middleware stands between where the request is coming and where the request is supposed to arrive, right? The middleware stands between the uh, the source of the request and the destination or the endpoint or the controller for that request, right? And this is the controller for getting all tasks, right? This is the controller for adding a task, right? And so on and so forth, right? But then let's see, how do I create that middleware to lock people out if they are not logged in, right? Or stop people that are not logged in. This is what I'll do. I'll create a function. I could just call that function is user logged in, right? Is user logged in, and then I'll pass in request, response, and next. Remember that every middleware must have request, a response, and a next. So this next is what is going to call the next route that is supposed to handle that request, right? Now, what we will do here is we will say request dot author request dot header. I mean headers or header dot authorization, right? The authorization header is what you actually pass the token in as. So you can say token should be equals to request the authorization. But then first, before doing this, remember that if the person is supposed to send a request, right? This is how the person is going to do it. The person is supposed to send a request with a request header, right? An authorization header, sorry. So you say post and you type task. I think it's task. Let me check it again. Okay, tasks with S at the end, right? Let's take, for example, I want to get all the tasks, right? Then what I'm supposed to do here is I'm supposed to pass in an authorization header, right? But then the authorization header is going to look like this: bearer, Then the next thing I'm going to pass here is the token that I will be getting from or I will be passing to the API. I hope you guys are following, right? So it will take that shape or that form. Now, remember that you get the token when you're logged in, right? So let's try to log in again. So comment on that, come back here, remove the comment on that, those set of lines, then make the request, copy the token I was given there. I'll come and comment on that, then come here and paste it. So if you look, we now have localhost, authorization bearer, and then we have the token, right? This is how, if I don't add this, right, the middleware should be able to stop me from logging in. But I've not finished writing the middleware to actually do that. So first I'll say this is the token, right? Then, okay, I'll just say authorization. Authorization header. Then remember this authorization header is going to come as bearer, then the token. So now I have to split it, right? I could then say const let's just call this val. I just say value should be equals to the authorization header dot split, but I want to split by space because I want to split by this space so that bearer would be on one side and then this token will be on the other side. So let's come back here. I could then say the token type should be val at 0. Remember that now this token type will have the value of bearer, right? Then we can then say const token value should be equals to val at 1. Then under here now, what we will do is we'll then say because first you want to check the token type because you can have multiple types of token. You can have multiple types of authentication rule. You can have using bearer token. You can use basic authentication. You can use API key and secrets depending on what you want. So we will first check the token type. So we can say if token type is equal to bearer, right? Some people will say if token type dot to lowercase is equals to bearer in small letters, right? If it is bearer, then this is what we want to do. We would want to write JWT dot right. Okay, I'll say const decoded should be equals to JWT dot decode. Okay, now it's not showing me that I have JWT in this file, so I have to come and import it. So const JWT should be equals to require.
Mr. Victor,
Yeah,
that request dot header is coming from where? Dot authorization.
yeah, it's
That
coming.
authorization itself.
This will be coming from the request that the user would send. Maybe it will come from a mobile app. It
So
will
is it
be
now global or what? Because I don't
remember
because the request, there is no
remember
method for this request.
now. Look, we need to use router dot use here, and then we can pass in this user logged in. So this is user logged in now. Automatically, this request response
It's global.
is passed to that function. Do you understand?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, what I just need to do here is I would write decoded should be equals to jwt dot the oh sorry, I didn't import this properly. So this is supposed to be JSON web token, so that if I write jwt dot, then I'll see verify and I'll see decode, right? So I think I could use verify. So verify accepts a token. Oh, sorry, I won't use verify because verify is going to accept a token and push. Okay. Right. I'll use verify. So verify is going to accept a token. And remember that this token here is this particular value, right? The token that we're actually getting. So I'll say token value, comma. Then this other part is going to be the secret. Remember that secret that we used up here, right? This secret. So I'll just copy it. But when you're using your secret, just put it inside your env. I think I should just do that, but I won't share my screen while I'm doing that. So let me share something else, then let me do that quickly. So I'll just say secret should be equals to that value. All right, so then let's come back to class. So if we come back here, I hope you guys can see. Now I have included the secrets inside my env file, right? But then I don't need this secret here again, right? What I just need now, there is a place that is going to screen error somewhere here, where I'm generating, yeah, this secret is supposed to scream an error. But inside here, instead of me just saying secret, I could say process.env.secret. Okay. Then I would also need this, right? I'll also need that. I also need that here. And since I'm also using that secret on the tags, I also need it there. Okay. Then at this point, I could also do the same thing. Process.env.secret, right? So it's going to come to pick the secret from the environment. And this is better because if you now push your code online, you don't need to come and start changing the secrets from each file, right? You just need that everywhere that the secret is pointing to that secret in that one file. If it is database, the database is the link is in that one file. If you push online, right, you can set the whole environment online without using this .env. So now the result of this the result of this decoded actually is going to be what we encrypted, what we hid inside uh, that token. So I could just console.log it. I'll just console.log decoded. But now after console.logging decoded, there is something we need to do. Don't forget, this is a middleware. Remember that a middleware stands in the middle, right? That is a middleware. So the next thing you're supposed to do is you're supposed to call the next function here. because you've been able to check the type, if the type is correct, and you've also been able to check to decode the whole the JWT, right? But then if this wasn't successful, right? If the token wasn't bearer and there was no way to actually decode this, right? You can then come and do something like this. You can respond dot send I think it's at this point I'm going to use status of 401 401 to tell the users that they are not authorized to access that route. So I could just say not authorized, right? So let's test what we've done so far, right? If you don't call the next function, this will be printed out, but it won't allow the request to pass to the appropriate controller that is going to handle it. Okay, so if we come back here, let me comment that and make that request. Okay, it still goes through, let me come back to the let me come back here and see, maybe I skipped something. Router.use is router log is user logged in here. Then I said if you're coming to the tasks route, right, is user logged in next, and okay. So I didn't remember to add this return, but then let me make that request again to see. Oh, it still fetches the whole thing. I think I'm missing out on something. Okay, let me remove this next and see what is going to actually happen. It still sends me back everything. So let me.
My app is crashing though. It's
Your app is
complaining.
crashing.
It's complaining about router.use. Where are we supposed to put it?
Oh, sorry. Look, I use route.get here, route, not router. But here I'm using router instead of route. Hello guys, I think that is the issue. Not I think, that is actually the issue. Sorry about that. That's R I added was the issue. So if I try to make this request again, or what is it showing now? Okay, set property undefined of splits. Okay, so I actually know what is happening. It's trying to split something that doesn't exist. So at this point, I could check if there's an authorization header. If there is no authorization header, then I could simply respond. By saying no authorization header, something like that, right? And then this is going to have a status of still 401, right? Or I could make it 400. Let's leave it as 401. right? Then let's come back here and make that request again. What is it saying? Okay, I made another typo. So it's supposed to be status, not status, right? So if I send it now, you see, we have no authorization header because there is no authorization header that we actually passed. So and I guess the server didn't crash. Okay. So let me come back here. There's something I'm also supposed to do here. I'm supposed to write a return here so that after it runs this particular line of code, it shouldn't continue further to try and run the ones under it. Okay, so if I come back and make the request again, you see, there's no error anymore. You have no authorization header because I didn't add any authorization header. But once I remove the comment on the authorization header and I make that request, it's still saying no authorization header. Okay, so which means there should be another typo, I guess. So this should be headers dot authorization. If I make that request, it's saying invalid signature. Okay, so we'll debug this together, right? Now, this invalid signature is just saying that it's trying to tell us that our secret is not actually recognized. Process.env.secret is not actually recognized. So I would have to figure that out now, and then I'll share my screen again. So just give me some few minutes. Let me figure that out. Secret. I think I need to crash the server and start it again because everything is running well. SECRET. Secret. So I don't know why it's not actually saying that.
You are not going, you are calling Kenny.
You see?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so let's try it again. It's saying invalid signature. Wow. Okay. So that invalid signature will be coming from here, right? This is going to come from somewhere here. So this is normal for you to actually encounter. So first, let us check if we can even get that secret, this process.env.secret. If I try to log out process.env.secret, so let me send the request and see if it is going to print out my secret. Let's check. Okay, so it prints out my secret, but it prints it out with a semicolon at the end. Okay, and my backend is feeling that the semicolon is also part of the secret. So let me go and remove that semicolon, and then we can continue. Okay, so let me share my screen again. So sorry about that. So Ladell is having the error that the connection was rejected. Either the requested service isn't running on the requested ports, or VS Code is configured. Why are you using 127.0.0.1:400? It's supposed to be 4,000, not 400, right? So Ladell, change that to a 4,000, not 400. Okay. then that should work. So let's come back here and make that request again. Oh, it's saying invalid signature. Okay, you know what? Let's try to log in again, and then let's get the signature and then use the signature down there. So we'd come here, we send a request, we get a response, we then copy the token on that response, and then we come here to wait. So let me comment on that, and then down here I'll come and paste it. Okay, then let's see. Exactly. So it shows us, I hope you guys can see it allows us to go through now, right? Now, if I delete even a letter from this, let's say I delete B there and I try to send that request, you see, it will say invalid token, right? But where did I delete that B again? Sorry, I think it's there. So if you don't send the correct request, right, or the correct authorization header, it's not going to actually work out for you. Okay, I don't know if you guys understand. Who is confused? Who is confused?
I am still confused though. But Mr. Victor, when you are done with the class, please push the code to the GitHub so that I can still go through it.
Okay, all right. So let me just explain what is happening here, right? When you log in, you're given an authorization header, right? Sorry, you're given a token, right? Now, you need to send that token back to the back end for its protected route. Now, the protected route is a route that you can't access without the authorization header. Okay. Okay, so Ladell, this is your error. I'll fix it after the class. Okay, definitely fix it after the class. So look, what is just said here is when we get the token, while after logging in, we'll pass the token to any protected route. Remember that now, because of this, middleware I've written here, right? Because of this middleware I've written here, this tasks route, right? Any controller that has to do with this task route is protected. So which means before you can edit, delete, or create or get any task, you actually have to uh, possess an authorization header, right? Or a token, which you can use to prove yourself. Now, embedded in this token, you're seeing is this email user ID. This IAT is the created at date for this particular token, right? If you come here, let's come back to this task.
Mr. Victor,
Yeah,
what if you are trying to send you are trying to make a request through a form? Are you going to still embed the authorization key or bearer inside
yeah.
the form?
No, you don't embed it inside the form. You still pass it as a header. Okay, now let's see. Let's come back here and let's try to add a task, right? Let's try to add a task. So first I'll try to add a task, but without any authorization header. Okay, so I'll say post to http:// localhost 4000/v1/ task, right? And not task. Then I'll say the contents type should be application/JSON. And let's say I don't put the request header, there's the authorization header, right? Then I say the task title is task 4. Let's say task 4, for example. And then I come here and say that the task body is task body for task 4, right? If I try to send this request without putting the authorization header to as a header, it's not going to save, right? Okay, it's saying cannot post to /task/task. So let me check where I'm supposed to post it to, right? So /post, okay. So which means I'm supposed to add the S at the end, right? Remember, it's /tasks, not /task. That's why it is giving us that error. So if I try to post there, you see, it's telling me no authorization header, which means since I have not sent an authorization header, it doesn't know who I am, right? But if I copy this authorization header now, right, and I come here and paste it, and I send that request, you see that task has been created successfully. Okay, and then if I come back and make this other request here, you see we have tax 1, we have another tax, and we have tax 4. So now this authorization header now is used by the back end to know who is making that request. Okay, now this user ID here can be used to identify each task that was made by a certain user. Now, for now, we've not even implemented that. The tax, even if 5 people are registered on this site on the API now, and any of them can view anybody's tax and delete anybody's tax now, right? Which is not actually ideal, right? Which is not actually ideal. But then we will see how we can stop that from happening. We can restrict people from deleting other people's tasks and the rest. But for now, this is how to actually do your register and log in. Okay, does anybody have any question, or is it very confusing? Who has question? Who has a question to ask? Nobody has any question.
I'm getting unexpected looking thing in Jason at 2023, and I not even giving it about that.
You say what are you doing?
Unexpected looking thing in Jason at 2023.
Unexpected token.
Okay, don't hear out to do that work.
Okay, if yours is giving you unexpected token while you're trying to make this post request, make sure that you have space before you write this JSON object, right? This JSON object. Make sure you have a space before you write it. 1, 2, no trailing comma. So if you have your title and you have your body, if you add a comma here, it will tell you that it's not expecting a comma after here. So remove the comma you have there.
I don't have a comma. It was working before, but it's not working again.
Okay. Then also, I hope you're using content type of application / JSON. Hello.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So after the call, right? Share your screen and then we are going to resolve it. Okay. So I'll drop a link and then we use that to resolve every issue that you guys have. Okay. So I guess because this class is already long spent, so I think I'll just I'll just do one thing and then we call it a day. Now let's see how we can prevent users from deleting other people's documents, right? So for us to do that, remember that we have a model. Where is that model? Okay, we have schemas here. We have tax schema. We have tax schema here, and the tax schema just has the title and the body. Now, how do you identify if a tax belongs to a particular user? There's no way for us to do it now, right? Now, what you need to do here is you can say user, then this bracket, you now say the type of that user is going to be schema dot object ID. I think that is it. Yes, schema mongoose.schema dot object ID. Now, this can be used to point to, but this is telling Mongo that whatever you're going to save in this user is going to be an ID, a valid ID, right? Then you have to tell Mongo what particular collection you're referencing. So you now say REF should be this users here. So you now come here and say REF should be users, right? Then what you're going to do now is, the third thing you're going to do is you come to this place to post task, right? Now, look at something, and this is going to be one of the most tricky part of trying to explain this to you guys, but you will understand it. Trust me. Now, this decoded that you've been able to get here, how do you pass this decoded now to a post request so that your post can now have it, right? Remember that this request here is an object. You can add things to an object, right? Remember that what we did with objects, you can add something to an object. So you can come here and say that request dot decoded. Request dot decoded should be equals to decoded. So we can delete that console.log. Now, what we are trying to say here now is, after when we know that the token type is bearer and we've gotten the payload from that particular token, right? After we've gotten the payload, we are now saying that on the request has header, the request has body, the request has the URL and everything. We are creating a new property on the request that is called decoded. Then the value of that decoded will be the decoded detail of that particular user. Hello, are you guys following? Who is not following? Hello. Today this class is really quiet though.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm following.
So we've created this decoded round, right? So what we just need to do here now, we can say that we can come here and say that the user here should be request dot decoded dot user ID. Let me check if it's actually correct. Yeah. So if we come here to log in, okay, be careful the way now I wrote user ID with capital I here, right? But then here I'm now using small letter I. And this bug, that's one way you can. That's why some people would probably use TypeScript compared to JavaScript, because JavaScript is not going to throw you any error for writing whatever you want to write. But if you're using something like TypeScript, TypeScript will tell you, see, you have an error, right? But then TypeScript is not so much different from JavaScript. It's just JavaScript with types, right? But then let's continue. Now, if I try to save, if I try to post a task, right? As soon as I pass the request header, which is the authorization header, after decoding, it's going to pass that request with the decoded user details to the route that is supposed to use it. In fact, to any route based on the request I make. Then now see what I'm saying. I'm saying the user should just be equals to the decoded ID I get. So if I try to create another task, right? Where is it? I create another task. I think I should space this thing more so that it won't really confuse you guys. So let's say I try to create another task now. I don't need to pass the decoded ID or the ID, because the ID is automatically going to be sorted out from the back end. So if I click on send request, what do we see? Invalid signature, or what is happening? What is happening? Do I need to log in again? Do I need to log in again? Did I miss something? Since I missed something, so let me see. Let me try to log in again. Where is it? So send that request to log in, get a token, sorry, then come down here. Another issue, another reason you might be getting maybe an issue with trying to send requests is that maybe one of these is not commented, right? One of it might not be commented, so it's going to give you an issue. So if we choose that, paste the code, and then we come and make that request again, what is it saying? Must be a valid HTTP token. Like I copied something extra. So let me see. It's like I copied something extra.
I think the bearer started with B now. The
Yeah,
bearer token.
yeah, it's correct.
For the key, B. It's not E. If I forgot, I think you edited it that time. The
No,
token.
no, it's actually correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bearer B. Let me make that request again, and I'll try to debug it from here if it still gives me the same response. So if it gives me the same response, it means that there's a place that I have made a mistake. Yeah, so let me go back and check my code. So it is going to be in one of these. Okay, mongoose dot schema dot types dot object ID. Yeah, mongoose dot schema dot types dot object ID. So that's what is the reason for this? So that if I send that request, I know there's a place that I missed something, which I'm trying to figure out. Schema types object ID. Then let me come back here to tasks. Right, you have request decoded is equals to this, and then they're saying request dot decoded dot the user ID, so is equals to that user. Let me see. How do I catch that error now? But that's, yeah, that error, how do I catch it? Wow. Okay. Oh, sorry. This was the error. I didn't actually have this space. It's just because of that space. So if I send that now, everything works well. Wow. I mistakenly I did not include that space. This space. That's just the reason why it was
Okay,
showing.
between authorization and the object body.
Yes, because it was taking the object body to be something that has to do with the header, because I didn't put this space. But this space now tells uh um describes the structure of my request better, right? It tells it that okay, this is the everything that's to do with the header. Then after this space, anything that you find under here is the payload or the body we are sending to the server or to our API. So now we've been able to create a tax, but the tax now
Before,
has user ID.
before we can create tags, we have to add the authorization token.
Yes, if you don't add this authorization token and you try to create a tax, it will tell you that it was expecting an authorization header, but since there's no authorization header, it won't allow you to actually create that task. Okay, but since there's an authorization, if there's an authorization header, then it will allow you to create the task. You get? You understand? So then now for us to only be able to fetch tax that is for a particular user, for the user that is logged in, this is what we'll come to do. We'll come here on the tax schema, right? This get here, right? Where we are getting all the tax. We are going to find all the tax where underscore u or where underscore id where the ID is going to be equals to request.decoded.user ID. So now what we are doing here is we are looking for all the uh the tasks where, oh sorry, we are looking for all the tasks where the value of the user is that user's ID, which is the ID we got from uh decoding that JWT, right?
I think
So
the decoded, the user ID should be capital. Capital.
yes, true. Yes, it should be capital I. Thank you. So if I send that request now, let me send that get request. Come back and send that get request. Okay, let me copy this JWT and use there. Okay, now if you see, I'm not getting all the task that was created on the database. I'm only getting tasks that I myself created. Can you see that? Hello? Can you guys see?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, let me try to explain what I've done so far. We've not even gone into the role-based authorization. I think that is going to be long term. I guess that's going to be long term because I can't teach that now in this class. But let me just explain what I've done so far, the overview of everything I've done, right? We did login before, sorry, we did register before. So what we just did here is we implemented login, right? And on the login, I said, when you're logging in, that the user details, we should find one user that the user's email is what is sent to us from our front. And remember that this request has to do with everything that the API is accepting, right? What Express is accepting, right? From as a request, maybe from a mobile app or from our test.rest, right? This request has to do with everything. So the request has a body, right? The body contains email, right? So after when we get the email, when we get the users, we check here, right? This is checking if that user's detail is empty. If it is empty, we will return a 404 and send a message that the user was not found. So the user with that email that doesn't exist, or I could just say user does not exist here. But then if the user exists, then this line of code is not going to run. Then the next thing we do now is we check if the password match. So this password match is going to be executed if this is false, right? If this resolves to a false with this exclamation mark. So this will resolve to a false only if that user exists. But if that user doesn't exist, this will become true. So the next thing we'll do is we check if the password match. And remember, we are using jwt.compareSync, right? Then we compare what the user, right, send as his password with what the database gives us as our password. Remember that the database provided password is the hashed representation of our password, while this is the raw password that the user actually sent, right? Then here we are checking if the passwords match, right? If the passwords match, then it should tell us, yeah, passwords match. But if the passwords don't match, then we should send back invalid credential. Now, look, I'm using return here. I'm using return. The reason why I'm using this return is once we send a response status code, we don't want this code to continue further to execute the next line of code. Like, for example, if the passwords don't match, after sending invalid credential, you should not continue and try to create a token, right? Then if the passwords match, then this will resolve to a false, right? So this will resolve to a false because password match will be true, but now we are negating it, so it will resolve to a false. If this comparison return false, which means the passwords don't match, then this will convert it to a true, and then invalid credential will be sent back. Then what we did under here is we now create a token. Remember that the token, if you want to create a token, you use jwt.sign, and then on the sign you put in either a string or an object that you would want to embed in a token. Then this secret is used as a key to lock or to create and verify the token. Then after that, you say sign in successful and you send back the token you've created to the user, right? Then on subsequent request to maybe a protected route, you need a middleware to actually prevent users that are not logged in from using that particular route, right? So that is where I started writing this user logged in middleware. Remember that middleware is taking request, response, and next, right? Then what we did here is I wrote authorization header should be the authorization header. Now, this request.headers.authorization will be mapped to this authorization here in capital letter. This authorization. So this authorization here, right? The value of this authorization here, which is this long string of bearer and then the token, will be assigned to this authorization header here. So we are saying this authorization header, which is that bearer token, is this authorization header. I'm just saving it as a variable so that I won't need to write this request.headers.authorization, right? We can delete this in env.secret. We didn't need it. Then here I'm checking if there is no authorization header, right? So if there's no authorization header, we should tell the user that there was no authorization header. Or you can just you can say unauthorized request, right? But then if there was an authorization header, this is not going to run. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to split that authorization header you got. You're going to split it. And when you split it, remember that when you split something, what you will get back is an array. So this value here, this VAL will contain an array. Remember. So if I did node and then I come here and write, let me copy this out. I think it should work here. If I say if I paste that and say dot split, and I want to split by space. Now, see now, it gives us an array back, right? The first value of the array, which is the value at index 0, is the bearer, while this other one here, right, is the token itself, right? So this bearer here is the token type, while the value of the token is this set of characters. Okay, I think it's dot exit. So I just did that for illustration purpose. Now on the task, once we split and we get the value, the first value is the token type, the second one is the token value. We check if the token type is bearer. If the token type is bearer, then we try to run this part of the code. So the next thing we want to do is we want to try and decode or verify the token value, right? So or the what the payload of that token. So we'll pass the token value here to this jwt.verify. We pass the token value and the secret, which is the key we can use to verify. Then after that, we will say request.decoded should be equals to decoded so that we can access the decoded values in the route we want to use it, any route we want to use it at. Then remember, you need to call the next function so that it's going to call the next function that is supposed to run. For example, if we send a get request, before the get request is going to land at this route, it's first going to pass through this user logged in middleware, right? And if this is user logged in middleware doesn't call the next function, that request is not going to reach this function, this controller, right? Is this next that makes it possible for a request to pass through this middleware and to meet any of the controllers that is concerned with that request. Okay, so now this is this middleware here is going to affect every controller that is written under it. Now, any controller that is written above this user logged in will not be affected by this middleware, right? So, for example, I could just say route route.get. I could say I want to get /try, just try. So req res, I should just respond with hello, right? So if I send a request to let me just comment. Okay, let me comment on that token, and I say /tax/try, and I send that request. You see, it sends me back a hello, right? Now, why is that so? It's because the try is above this route.use. If this try was below the route.use, if it was somewhere here, for example, which is below the route.use, if I try to make that request again, let me comment that if I try to make the request again, you see it's telling me no authorization header, right? But if I pass the authorization header now, it's going to show hello. That's because this hello is under. But if this hello was somewhere here, then this middleware won't affect it. Okay. So who has a question? Any question? Any question?
No question from me.
Okay. All right. So I this is where we'll wrap it up for this class then. So on Thursday, I should talk about role-based authorization and how you can actually use role-based authorization. Then after role-based authorization, we'll talk about how we can actually refactor this code, right? So there's some places you can make some improvement on the code and make it look better, right? That's one. And then there are a lot of things we will still do. We'll see how we can deploy this our back end on a service online, right? And I'll choose render.com to actually deploy it. Okay, but for this class, this is where we are going to actually stop. See, so in the absence of any question, is there any question? If there is no question, in the absence of any question, then we'll call it a day. So, but then the people that have bugs or issues, I'll then solve it for them, right? So, since you guys say there's no question, right? Call it a day. So, see you on Thursday, okay? So but the people that have the issue, right? Their backend issue, just stay on the call, okay? All right.